characteristic of the global and the local teacher professional, and also with the characteristic of teachers and a closer look at teachers and teaching profession in Asian and beyond. So now we are going to discuss the changing global landscape for 21st century teachers. So you already know how to count centuries. So we are on the 21st. 20, you add 1, 20, 21. You add 1 to the first 2 letters. So 20, 21. Noong 1900s, 20th century siya. So starting from 2001, we are already in the 21st century. So you will notice that there is a shift of educational system. We are geared towards globalization. So instead of confining the study or teaching in the four walls of our classroom, we emerge or we tackle issues not only affecting the country but also those issues affecting the world. So according to the UNESCO in 1996, if we are to select and prepare new generation of teachers equipped with knowledge, skills, and values to help their culturally different and socially advantaged students to learn to resolve conflict peacefully, to respect each other's dignity and cultures, and to become socially responsible citizens, significant changes are needed. So, great challenge for 21st century teachers are understanding the cultural differences as well as the individual differences, because it's but natural your student will come from different cultures, so they will have different behaviors, diverse from each other. So if the students expect to have 50 different characteristics and attitudes. Okay, so lesson 3 is about the changing global landscape in teaching and learning, brought about by factors such as learning environment, content and process of learning, types of learning, and other parameters in the 21st century. So we will discuss what are the landscape, global landscape for 21st century teachers in terms of learning environment, in terms of content and process of learning. So what are those covered, or what are the content to be studied in the 21st century, and what are the types of learners and other parameters. So we start in the changing global landscape in the 21st century skills for teachers. Has been said that we are in the era of borderless flat world. So you have observed that there are advents of technology, so we can take advantage of this technology for the development of teachers as well as for teaching and learning process. Barriers have been broken by the new information and communication technologies. So globalization has opened doors that lead nations to coexist and become interdependent. However, the common future will still be more dependent on knowledge, skills, and values of its people. Thus, localization can be response. So, as a 21st century teacher, there's an urgent to understand the new landscape that is brought by the changes in leaps and bounds of the century. So, you have experienced educational system that might had been a product of the 20th century. So as a would-be teacher, you will have a great leap, and you have to understand that there is a new landscape, like what was described by Sue in 2006, that identified some categories of different changes and development in the 21st century teaching and learning. To understand the categories, we will attempt to describe the new learning environment. So we expect to have a new learning environment in the 21st century. Then identifying the new learning content, the process of learning and how this learning will be facilitated, and describe the new types of learner and also the new type of teachers. So what do you expect from the 21st century teaching and learning process in terms of new learning environment? The idea is that the learning environment has broadened, and it does not confine to the four walls of the classroom. It is a place where interaction of the learners among others with teacher and surroundings happens. So it is characterized by the following: learner-centered. So the new learning environment is not just teacher-centered, wherein the teacher has the monopoly of knowledge, but it is learner-centered, considering the multiple intelligences and individual characteristics, unique characteristic of each learner. New space and borderless. Well, the trend, especially in the constructivism philosophy, wherein you will expose your students to real life learning, real life situation. So it's not necessary that you will have your class in a typical classroom. You can go to the field. You can have your immersion. That is the trend. In senior high school, usually they have their immersion. They go to the business facilities, serving as waiters and as employee, for them to be exposed to the real world scenario. So, environment does not only limit to the four walls of the classroom. You can even go to the field, and what is important is the observation. You have your critical thinking skills of the events and the scenario that you observe in the real world. Then, the new learning environment also has an enhanced opportunity for creativity and innovation. It has a room for creativity and innovation because it does not limit only to the classroom. So the teacher may initiate different kinds of teaching modalities or strategy. Then, of course, it is expected that the new learning environment will use the information communication technology. New learning environment may also include your house, your room, or your rooms. As what we have experienced, we are having our class online. So your room can be your new learning environment also. If you have signal for your internet connection. So we have already started discussing. If you have your books, please open it. It's 131. So as I have said a while ago that in the 21st teaching and learning process, there is a change in learning environment. Do you have any concern or question? What are your observations? What can you say about the new learning environment? 21st century teaching and learning process.
So this is century and knowledge since it is the student center, the knowledge that the student gains is broadened, nag-broad siya, hindi lang siya nakakuha sa sila na place like sa other country, but also the world na explore that through the use of technology namin.
That is correct. Apelyido? Lerny. Gloria. $131. Okay, so aside from new learning environment, there's also another concern for the changing global landscape in the 21st century. That is the new learning content. The new learning environment, an explosion of knowledge, content, or subject matter of learning has been modified. So from a specific discipline or subject area, the subject of learning has the following characteristics. Number one, it is integrated and interdisciplinary. During the time of Secretary Raul Roco, one subject which is called Makabayan. Makabayan is an integration of different subject on history, geographiya, kasaysayan, at civica, also with the music, arts, and PE. The subject is an integration of different disciplines. And the other subject, core subjects, which include English, mathematics, Filipino, science, you will also integrate the values per week. So, for example, your subject in a certain week, you are talking on patriotism and nationalism. So in all subjects, in 5 subjects and in 4 subjects and in Makabayan, that should be integrated, that should be tackled about patriotism and nationalism. Para meron siyang team per week. Iba sa dati na as if we are studying a subject separately from the other subject. Pero sa basic education ngayon, we try to integrate one subject to the other subject so that the student or pupils will realize that what they are studying in one subject is related to the other subject. So that is the first characteristic, integrated and interdisciplinary. So it doesn't mean you are studying Filipino, you will not talk about math. You are studying English, you will not talk about science. What is the trend is if you are, for example, studying main ideas of the paragraph in English, but the content is on science ideas. But the skills that is required by the student is identifying the main idea in the paragraph. But that paragraph itself is about science ideas. So that is how we integrate the subjects. Then subjects also in the 21st century is demand-driven. It has an emphasis on learning tools, on how to retrieve knowledge, and a balance of scientific, technological, cultural, global, and local concepts. So we change from memorization of the facts and concept to getting learning tools on how you are going to apply the knowledge that learned from the subject. So it is a 180 shift, 180 degrees shift from our what we are used to. We used to memorize facts. We tend to memorize facts. But now the trend is to know the how, not only the what, but the how. So you will let your student realize how are you going to use the knowledge that they have gained in their day-to-day real-life experiences. And because if you will try to inculcate significance of what the students are learning, they will be interested. Diba? Bakit ako mag-i-interest sa isang bagay na alam ko hindi ko naman magagamit? But if you will try to explain to them the significance of what concepts that they are learning in their day-to-day real-life experience, they will become interested in your discussion. Okay, so aside from that, our concern also is the new process of learning and how this will be facilitated. So with the advancement of study of the mind and cognition, various processes of learning evolved with human intervention of teachers and peers, as well as non-human intervention of artificial intelligence of robots. So with this advancement, the different process of learning and methods to facilitate have evolved. This includes the idea of multiple ways of learning which can be mediated by the following. So in the past, we only limit our class into face-to-face. That is one modality, face-to-face. When learners and teachers are confined in the same learning space at the same time with teacher who facilitated the learning. But we have experienced during the time of pandemic, we have the distance learning, modular or online class. When teaching learning is mediated by traditional module in print, so for those areas which do not have stable internet connectivity during the pandemic, they used to have the modules in print. Like in the Department of Education, ginamit modules. Or for the modern technology, we use the online or offline online or offline. Without the physical presence of teacher in a virtual class, it can be synchronous or asynchronous class. But there are advantages and disadvantages with these types of learning modality, face-to-face and distance. Then another ways of learning is blended modalities. When teaching and learning is facilitated through face-to-face or distance learning, which enable the teachers and learners to have both physical presence and physical absence in the teaching and learning process. So I guess what we are doing now is blended modalities. We include face-to-face and we have our online class. And another learning modality is experiential and lifelong. When teachers are immersed, when learners are immersed into the real life situations, such as learning becomes more authentic and meaningful. So these are the modalities for the 21st century. Which do you prepare? Anong palagay mo will work best for you? Miss Aleria, ano dito ang mag-work para sa'yo? Well, they have different learning abilities. What will work for you? Huh? Blended.
Yes, both using
Face-to-face.
face and taking advantage of technology.
How about yung one? Immersion, experiential, and lifelong. Because in experiential and lifelong learning, you're using all your senses. So as we have said, the more senses that is used in learning, the better is the retention. So another concern for the 21st century education is the new types of learners. The new breed of learners does not have age boundaries. So we do not limit our learners just like in the past. If you are in elementary grades, dapat nasa 5 years old to 12 years old. But today, as we have noticed, there are learners who age 80 years old, 70 years old, they graduated from high school. Especially that the learning modality can be a distance learning. So, there is no need for a face-to-face interaction between the students and the teachers. So, hindi mapagtatawanan yung estudyante na medyo may edad na kasi walang face-to-face interaction. Learners maybe are informal, formal, or non-formal. So what is the difference? Informal education, formal education, and non-formal education. Formal education, it is rigid. It has a system. Like what we are doing. Systematize. There is a specific schedule. Formal education. Then non-formal education, like the alternative learning system. Alternative learning system. There might be no definite schedule of the class. They are using different modalities of learning also. And informal education, those that can be learned through experience. So the types of new learners. New learner is a confident person who thinks individually, independently, and critically, and who communicates effectively, so that the learner has confidence. So, in this connection, you have to know that as early as 1 year old, 2 year old, or even the child is still in the womb of her mother or of his mother, these children are already exposed to various technologies, so they can acquire knowledge. There are even students or pupils who are having the difficulty in speaking the mother tongue. Kasi they're exposed to Cocomelon and Peppa Pig, sa kanilang accent is already a British accent. And when they enter into grade 1, they are having the difficulty in understanding the mother tongue. Ganun ko nito niya, sayo, luha, tulu, because they used to count 1, 2, 3, 4 English with British accent. Kasi ang pinanonood nila sa mobile phone o gadget, yung mga palabas na having the English as the language. So they are exposed to that. Learners also are self-directed and who question, reflects, and takes responsibility in his or his own learning. So it is learners who are active, not only passive. We like learners who questions, reflect, and take responsibility. Then, learners also are a concerned citizen, informed about the world and the local affairs, has a strong sense of civic responsibilities, participates actively in improving the lives of others. Another characteristic is that a member of new generation, pop culture, different ways of thinking and responding. So every generation has its own culture and different ways of thinking brought about by the technology or the environment where they are in. In the past, we are afraid to manipulate gadgets or technology, but today, as we have observed, even a 1-year-old child can now manipulate tablet, cell phone, and even if that cell phone has the password, it can unlock the same. Because they are exposed already to the kind of technology. So furthermore, the new types of learner are those coming from diverse background, multicultural and multi-generational, as coming from different groups, age group of lifelong learners. In order for the learner to address the challenge of the 21st century, he or she has to develop a life and career skills. Life and career skills are enhanced in school as a part of learning outcomes. So what are the characteristics of learners who have developed the life and career skills? So as a learner who has the life and career skills, you must be flexible and adaptable, because in the 21st century there is a change in information in a matter of a split second, and even there is a spread of fake news. So as a citizen of the 21st century, you have to learn to adapt and be flexible. That is the dilemma of the older generation. Every time there is a new system introduced, for example, by the Department of Education, this older generation tend to resist. Sinasabi nila na magre-retire na lahat. Babaguhin na liwat ang curriculum. Kunhain man, listo na naman kami. Babago na liwat curriculum. Well, that only signifies that they are not flexible and adaptable to the changing environment. Rigidity runs counter to the development of the skill. Rigidity or not permanent, rigidity or permanence runs counter to the development of the flexible and adaptable skill. Then another skill that you need, a learner need to possess, is initiative and self-direction. A self-directed learner demonstrates life and career goals that are set and managed by themselves. There is a commitment to learning as lifelong process, and many of the young learners are capable of doing things without being told. They have the initiatives. They do not need to be given a detailed instruction. They plan and work out their plans. So, we tend to develop a learner that is independent. Well, we already know that our role is just facilitator of learning. We are there to push our students, to guide them. So they must have their initiative. And what is important is help them to have goals or objectives. Then another skill for the students is the social and cross-cultural skills. So this life and career skills requires learner to respect cultural differences and work effectively with others, to be open-minded to different ideas in order to innovate and improve quality of work. Cross-cultural. So because of the trend of globalization, localization, there might be students having from different culture in one class. It is already possible, especially in online class. So you might have classmates coming from other continents, and you have to consider their background, social and cultural background, because they will have different characteristics and behavior. Then another skill is productivity and accountability. Individuals who possess skill are enabled to produce results. They respect teamwork and cooperation. They manage time very well, and they do the multitask. That is now the trend, multitasking. And we only account for the result. So the word is waiting always for the result. It does not concern with the process. What is needed is the result. So for example, if you pass the licensure examination for teacher, it does not care how do you prepare for that examination. What is important is you pass the licensure examination. Then, in order for the learner to have a life and career skill, he must possess leadership and responsibility. Good learners or good leaders are interpersonal and problem-solving skills with integrity and ethical behavior to influence and guide others. Leadership and responsibility are life skills that should be developed by learners and teachers. There's a need to develop leadership skills and to impose responsibility upon each learner. Siguro ang magandang ituro talaga sa mga estudyante, mga bata, is the responsibility and accountability. They are taking responsible of their action and accepting their mistake. Yun yung usually wala sa isang tao. How to accept mistake and responsibility. Pag mayroong achievement, they are all are taking credits of the achievement of the award. But if there is a mistake, lahat ay naguhugas ng kamay. Hindi ko trabaho yan. Hindi sa akin yan. So instead of magturuan, magsisihan, one should take responsibility and admit mistake. Because by admitting mistake, you will learn. Failure is a part of success. So if you admit failure, later on you will become successful. So you learn from your previous experiences. Failure is there to give us lessons. So we admit failures and we admit mistakes as part of our life. In order for us to become successful, we have to go through different obstacles. And all those successful persons have gone through many failures. So, with this global landscape, what do you expect from our teachers? So we have the new type of teachers. As a teacher, teachers are currently preparing for students for jobs and technologies that they don't even exist yet. The challenge is to produce the new type of teachers. That is the goal of education, to prepare students for the job and technologies that does not exist yet. Because in their adult life, they will be exposed into another environment. So, better as early as now, they have to prepare for that. In the past, what seems impossible are now possible. During the time of Marconi, when he has the idea, he espoused the idea that a person who is living in different place can talk to each other. Pero nang marinig ng mga kaibigan yung ganyang idea, pinasok siya sa mental hospital. Nababaliw ka na doon ka sa mental hospital. But now, with the technology, with the invention of cellphone, you can already talk to anyone, even if they are in the other parts of the world. So what seems to be impossible before are now possible. So as we are preparing our students for globalization, as a teacher, you have also to prepare. So what are the characteristics or the types of teachers? Number one, clear standards and accountability that the learner should know and be able to do at the end of their schooling. So you have a clear goal and standards that your students will learn something, gain something from the teaching and learning process. Then use broad pedagogies including inquiry-based learning, cooperative learning, and other pedagogy. Not only teaching and learning or lecture method, but other kinds of pedagogy, strategies, modalities of learning, which primarily includes inquiry-based. Inquiry, which means that learners has to ask questions and solve problems, because we concentrate now on the how, not on the what. Is skillful in the integration of the ICT. Yan. Kung hindi ka marunong ngayon sa technology, you are outdated teacher. Is skillful in the use of assessment to guide teaching and learning. Teachers have great understanding of the local and global culture, skillful in action research to diagnose and solve the classroom problem based on evidence. Also, the recent trend is to use the researches to improve teaching and learning process. Then practice core values of inspiring teachers and develop life and career skills for the 21st centuries and beyond. So these are the new types of teachers. The characteristic of teachers should 21st century teachers possess. Okay, then we go to the 4 pillars of learning. 4 pillars of learning for the 21st century. Learning to know, learning to do, learning to be, and learning to live together. So UNESCO 4 pillars of learning. Number 1 is learning to know. This implies that the thirst for knowledge and acquisition of such knowledge, more so it is the learning how to learn through one's life. So the first pillars in learning is learning to know. Not only memorizing the facts, but how to learn. Okay, that is the first pillar. Then, next is learning to do. Learning to do means the application of knowledge that one must have in the 21st century education. Learning to do. So you have already know how to acquire knowledge. This time, you are going to apply what you have learned. Then, Another pillar is learning to be. Learning to be is about improvement of self-knowledge and self-esteem. So you have already know how to acquire knowledge. You have applied the knowledge that you have learned. Then you have to continuously improve yourself. That is the third pillar. Continuously improve yourself and acquire knowledge, because learning is a lifelong process. If you stop reading, if you stop learning after you graduated from your bachelor's degree, then 5 years after that, you will be outdated, because there is a fast changing information. So we need to keep abreast of the latest development. Even lawyers need to study and to improve themselves, because if they will only rely the knowledge that they have learned from the law school, they will be outdated. New laws has been enacted and promulgated in order for the law to become applicable to the changing times. Then learning to live together, that is how learning to live harmoniously, especially that we all know we came from different culture. So in order for you to become a successful student, you need to learn to live together. Okay? So those are the 4 pillars, 4 na haligi. Una, learning how to learn, learning how to apply your knowledge, learning how to continuously improve yourself, and learning to live together or to cooperate. Or understand others. That is the 4 pillars. What are the 21st century literacies? Number 1, arts and creativity. Creativity and innovation are 21st century skills, thus in solving problems and creating artwork, part of this literacy. Then, eco-literacy. So, not only the basic literacy, you know how to read and write, yun yung the basic literacy. Learning how to read and write. But aside from that, you have also to have skills in arts and creativity. Eco-literacy. You have to care on your environment. Acquisition of knowledge about climate change, pollution, loss of natural habitat, and biodiversity. Then, cyber literacy or digital literacy. So, in order for us to be smoothly adapt to the present environment, we need to cultivate cyber literacy and digital literacy. Aside from that, we have the financial literacy. Basic knowledge of economics and financial management. What is basic principle in financial literacy? You spend less from what you earn. You spend less from what you earn. So, ibig sabihin, if you will have an income, for example, of 10,000, so spend mga 90% and you save for the 10%. Because if you will spend more than what you earn, it will only lead you to bankruptcy. Mahihirap ka talaga, mamumulubi ka. That is the first principle in financial literacy. You spend less from what you earn. Spend less from what you earn. Example given in the book of the wealthiest man in the Babylon. If you earn 10 eggs per day, 10 eggs, you only consume 9 eggs and you save 1 egg. And you will later on realize after the passing of time that you will have your savings. If your savings is already enough, then you invest it to activities that will yield more income. Pero sa atin naman, mga Pilipino, birthday, mangungutang, 5-6 pagod. Kasal, mangungutang, kaya magpapatayo ng bahay, mangungutang. So, walang income na pumapasok. Because these are the activities that does not yield return of investment. Kahit yung bahay, it's a dead investment. But if you invest your money in the activity that will give you a return, business, tapos kikita ka. Yung kita mo, yun na ang ipatayo mo ng bahay. And that is how to become financial literate. And of course, there are so many resources. You can buy books. If you want to become successful, study success according to Jim Rohn. If you want to become wealthy, books, authors, or listen to the audio lectures on accumulation of wealth. You know, we are so privileged in our generation because we have different sources of information. Kaya lang, you have to choose, you have to screen the source of information. You have the YouTube. Oh, napaka laking gamit ng YouTube. Ako, I am always listening to audio lectures on finances and on inspiration. And if it will become your habit, listening or reading books, you will have self-confidence and you will have new perspective in your life. Mababago ang buhay niyo. Hindi katulad dati na informations are accessible only by those who can afford. Even if you want to read books, nasa YouTube, mayroong mga audio lectures. So kung pagod ka na sa pagbabasa, on mo lang ang YouTube. You have your internet, then you can already listen. You have the access to these great books. Another skill is social, emotional skill. Oh, this is very much needed in the 21st century, especially the emotional skill. Napapansin nyo ngayon yung ating mga estudyante, I don't know if it's true yung na-post sa Facebook na binuli yung estudyante
So,
dahil siya ay taga BBM, binuli ng mga taga-Lenin tapos nagpakamatay. Marami kasi mga matampuhin yung mga bata ngayon because siguro it is brought by the technology, the habit of being alone. The tendency of our children now is to become alone. They have their gadgets without having the interaction to other individuals. So their emotion becomes frail. Madali silang magalit, madaling mainggit, kaya pag pinapagalitan o madaling magtampo, then leading to the suicide. Lalo na yung mga bata ngayon, pag pinapagalitan mo, nanahadok na yun. Pagkamatay na lang. Isyak niyo, pero wala ang. Ako rin pag-disiplina lang eh. Wala, puro lang. Mamatay man taang. And marami na tayong mga estudyante na nagpapakamatay because of non-stability of their emotion. Then another skill is globalization and multicultural literacy. Respect for the multicultural diversity and aware of the global trends. Yeah. So not only reading, writing, and arithmetic, but you need these skills 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 skills in order to become adaptable to the changing times, flexible and adaptable. Okay?